clear back in the BC period, even before, say, in fact, our sources told us the first great teachers of the world came 18 million years ago.
That's ancient.
That's a long time ago.
Did you know they found fossilized sandal prints sandal prints in fossilized limestone up in the Arctic area or up near the Arctic area that go back to the pre-Cambrian era? That's 250 million years ago, Barb.
Yes, I do realize that. I've heard.
Yeah, this planet's been on the trade routes, and probably
a lot of this information is in my book, Out of the Stars. Now, I do not have a website. I wish I did, so I could reach some of these people. They could reach me. I have an email, as you well know.
Yeah, why don't you give your physical address, if you would, or a way that people, if they want this book, they can contact you down there in Arizona.
Okay. Well, anyway, I also want to greet all of those that we contacted from the east, north, south, west of our country that are right now listening to this program. But anyway, my P.O. Box is P.O. Box 332, Cornville, C-O-R-N-V as in Victor, I-L-L-E-A-Z, 86325. But send it to Blue Rose Ministry. Okay, P.O. Box 332, Cornville, AZ, 86325.
Why don't you take a moment for us, Bob, here and break off a little bit, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the types of books and videos?
About what now?
Your books and your videos and materials that you have.
I have a brochure which I will send out to them. We do have a newsletter we send out quarterly. It's called the Solar Space Letter. We ask a $15 donation per year, and it's very reasonable. It contains a lot of the communication information given to me and to our group, for being put into the publication for their edification, to their knowledge. They're saying the economy is going to be bouncing back in a much better way by the summer solstitial time period. There's already signs of it. Many of the monetary funds have already paid back their money that they were given in bailouts already by now, and it's going to get better, but just going to have patience, and there's a lot of things happening, which I think I read to you, Joe, having to do with how the opposition voted for the health reform bill by holding more or less out for allowing the Atlantic seaboard and the Gulf Coast to be opened up for oil drilling, using the excuse that we have to get off foreign oil. Okay, but don't forget that there are fault zones off of the Atlantic coast as well as the Pacific coast. But Obama said he would not allow any drilling to be done along the Pacific coastal area because it is the Ring of Fire.
Right. And we know how active that's been over the last week.
So he knows this, okay? See? But they did this. They said, if you'll let us overrule the environmentalists and the people interested in the conservative elements, okay, and let us drill, we will add our votes to the health reform bill.
Yeah. Well, do you really think that they're not drilling out there because there's something geophysically that would be triggered if they did go out there drilling? And I know you briefly mentioned salt caverns. How does that relate?
Sure. I mean, there's all kinds of things they're uncovering ruin areas now off of Cuba. See, at one time, what they call the Andes Mountains or the Cordilleras extended all the way along out of South America, clear up through the Central American area. Mm-hmm. That's where all the West Indies islands are, right. Cuba included. See, and it connected up at one time with the area that's now called the Bahamas, and so on. See, that was all part also of the last part called Posidia or Poseidon, the last part of Atlantis that went underwater. But anyway, they're uncovering a lot of this now. See. But just like they're uncovering Göbekli Bekli in Turkey that goes back 12,000 years BC. Wow. I mean, it's all megalithic ruins.
It is, and those had to be Anunnaki. I mean, they were the builders.
Well, they also were the build. I mean, the Great Pyramid to itself, believe it or not, is an energy device. Mm-hmm. It consists of limestone ashlars and granite ashlars that creates an air core vibrator or resonator. There's a pit in the bottom underneath the pyramid that originally had large copper pyramids built, one face downward, one faced upward, so that basically when this energy would build up, it would be centered up through the pyramid and would come out through the top of the pyramid where it could be tapped for energy by UFOs.
All right, Bob, we've got one more break, and then we'll be right back. Little James bringing us back from the break. We've been talking about Reverend Bob Short and early contactees' experiences, and when we left, we were talking about the pyramid and the energies that they create.
Yeah.
And I just learned that you have a closeness with Max.
Max, the crystal skull, and other crystal skulls.
A closeness with who?
Max,
the crystal skull. We could say that in stereo.
I have my own baby skull that dates back to 1000 A.D. out of Teotihuacan, Mexico. It's an amethyst skull. But anyway, I know Sandra Bowen that wrote a book about the crystal skull with Joshua Shapiro. In fact, I gave an interview at William Cox's house, Bill Cox, up in Santa Barbara at the time. He's now, unfortunately, he's gone, but he used to put out the Pyramid Guide, and they had a wealth of information in that newsletter. I have some of them still left, but showing how they use certain devices for energy, including those light bulb things. But anyway, I gave an interview to Frank Dorlin, who worked with Anna Mitchell Hedges for many years, and she allowed him to experiment or do experiments or research on the skull itself. So he took it home with him, placed it in his front living room, and during the night they heard screams and cries and all kinds of weird things that kept them awake all night. And the next day when they went into that room, they had sliding doors that were closed, and they could hear this. And when they said they even saw a light coming out of the cracks of the door, and they couldn't figure out what that was, and they didn't want to go investigate any further. But when they went into the room the next day, things were strewn around. The room was kind of in a real disarray, and things were knocked off the tables and so forth. And they don't know what in the world caused all this. They have no idea. Even Frank is no longer alive, but I did an interview with him, which I have all recorded. I mean, not recorded, but typed out. And I told Sandra Bowen, who's up in Calistoga, California now, I told her that I'd try to send her a copy of that. But anyway, and I know Joanna Parks and her husband, I did a sitting with Max, her skull, in Colorado Springs at one time when Tim Beckley held a convention there. She allowed me to sit with the skull in her apartment, and while they were doing whatever they were doing, I sat and I put my fingers up, my thumb on where the third eye would be, and my fingers up on top of the skull, and I meditated, I tuned in, and they said they heard pure Mayan coming out of my voice, out of my voice box. They noticed it, but they didn't do anything about it. They didn't record it. She was counting her money or whatever, and I said, did you record that? And I said, because it was telling them some information about the skull. Well, I did a reading at one time for Joanna Parks, and they knew all about the skull, how she came into possession of it through that fellow that was honorary named as a lama, and so forth and so forth. They knew all about it, and also the crystal skull, I know about its travels and what it was used for itself, okay?
So what was it used for?
It finally came out of Atlantis, from a temple in the southwest part of Atlantis, before that part of Atlantis went down, and it was used as an oracle. They had ventriloquists that would speak, and they would move the jaw. They would have lights playing through it. They would move the jaw, and the people felt it was actually the voice of the god speaking, and it was used as a positive oracle to tell them oncoming things that were going to take place that were positive. And then finally, before it went down, that part of Atlantis went down, it was taken out of there to Egypt originally, okay, and used as an oracle there, but unfortunately